wali wambuziza kibuzo ekya Entebbe airport gye mugamba Entebbe Kisaawe bakitwala Ssimanyi ani yakitwala ffe Kisaawe tukiraba wekiri era mu contract yakolebwa ate Anthony General yafubye nnyo okubinnyonnyola jjo mu contract yakolebwa tewali walaga nti ekyapa ky'Entebbe airport kyateekebwayo ng'omusingo kati bwe kiba tekyateekebwayo ng'omusingo akati ate balijja batya okutwala ekintu ekitaasimbibwayo gwe bwe weewala ssente mu banka batugambe nga mu abalina eza salale nga wagambye nti salale yo yekuyimirira senga olemu okusasula banka eyo egenda netwala ennyumba mwosula tekisoboka kuba ennyumba mwosula tewagiteekayo ng'omusingo ekisaawe tekiteekebwangayo ng'omusingo eri akawunti gye bagamba esukulu akawunti gye bateekawo ebanga kittavu ebanga nti senga wabeerawo engeri yonna ebeerawo ne tulwawo okusasula mu ngeri emu waliwo wetujja sente egamba servicing loan eyo esigale ng'ekola ki ng'etambula tewali agambye nti kubanga senga muga nti nga bwe mubiteebeka nti si yeye tesobola nakolo lwaki si yeye erwaninga kati sente zayo ezijjawa era ekola nga bwe yali ekola edda naye eri akawunti yateekebwawo kittavu protecting loan eno senga wabeerawo ekibeerawo basobola okufuna walisi ate ne loan erina ekiseera kye baatuwa nga tetusasula emyaka 7 teginnaggwako loan yakusasula mu myaka 2 emyaka 2 teginnaggwako finance tennatugamba nti eremereddwa okusasula kakati ekisaawe okukitwala kivaawa edda waliwo abantu waliwo engeri gye timpulidde byogerwa nga ngalabi ya Nyanzi naye nammwe abamu bye mwogera byebyo muwulira byogerwa nga ngalabi ya Nyanzi naye ndowooza tukitereezezza ekisaawe tekirina gye kiraga ekisaawe wekiri ekisaawe kyogeddwa okukolwa obulungi tusobole okompitinga ne bannaffe mu region mwegomba nnyo ebirungi ebwebweru naye ate temwagala nammwe mufune ebirungi simanyi lwaki muleke naffe tufune ku birungi naffe kuba kati luli oba mujjukira mu kyogamu ennyonyi ezimu twale mu zipaakinga wano ne zigenda ebunaayira kubanga twalina space ekisaawe kyaffe kyali kitono aganyonyi agamu aganene nga tekasobola ggwako kakati bye twagala okukola ekisaawe kituukire ku mutindo gw'ensi yonna naye katuli mu ekisaawe bakitwala mugenzi baani akyetisse era ennyonyi oba eneeba yenkanawo n'ekyetikkeeyo loans ebikwata ku mabanja amabanja bwe nfuna ebbanja omulimu gwange kulaba nti ebbanja eryo bwe mba ndifunidde kukola luguudo lukoleddwa ogwo gwe mulimu gwange engeri y'okuzisasulamu ebyo Ministry of Finance yevunaanyizibwa kati simanyi oba looni zibatuuse mu bulago oba tusasula ebyo mujja biruza Ministry of Finance naye nze ze bampa okukola enguudo zo nzikoze era ng'oyagala okulaba obulungi obwa kuzimu ku looni ze twafuna mugendeeko hoima mulabe enguudo ze tukoze okuyamba okutandika okukola amafuta mujja kulaba nga mulabire ddala nti sente bwe zigenze era weewaawo ebya ndoza bye bambuzizaako kuba ababadde bayiriba bali ku URA akati abo nange simanyi kubanga nze buli system gyenteekawo eba egondeza muntu nkola kubanga tufunye obuzibu ti abantu bangi abo bwe mugamba abo babadde bayiriba ku URA batransferinze emmotoka z'abantu nga ne bannannyini tebamanyi misango giri mu kooti ate bavunaana ffe lwaki mwakkiriza okutransferinga emmotoka kakati twagala bw'oba ogenza okuregisteringa gwe nannyini mmotoka ovunaanyizibwa okuregisteringa emmotoka yo lwaki bw'oba ogenda okufuna visa gw'ogenda lwaki toddira feesi yo n'ogiwa omulala n'agikutwalira n'emmotoka yiyo era ne transfer tujja kuteekawo n'ekiseera bw'olina okutransferingira emmotoka ng'omaze ogigula saagala mmotoka tugisange ebwayise nga erimu ababbi nga Lubwama yagitunda naye ng'ate yagiguza Katumba naye ng'ate ekyali mumanya gani ga Lubwama siga Katumba ate Katumba yakola ki ye nannyini. Kakati osanga Lubwama nga tumuyigira bwereere omusajja temmotoka yo yabadde mu bubbi ng'ate omusajja emmotoka yakola ki yajejjako dda. N'olwekyo tugenda kula nti era ebimu ku bigenda okwongera okuleeta security nti emmotoka eri mannya go yiyo. Lwaki toyagala gwe wennyini genda kwewaayo nti nze emmotoka yange? Kyetugenda okukola okulaba nti tukwanguyiriza nga bwe twakola ku driving permit tekati osobola okugenda mu ddakiika 4 n'ofuna driving permit yo. Nawali kyetugenda okwongera okukola tulabe nga tuteekawo embeera eyanguyiriza omuntu bw'aba alina kyonna kye yeetaaga. Gye bujja mu maaso ojja kubanga otulana mu ofiisi y'oku ssimu n'obuuza ebikwata ku mmotoka yo ne babikubuulira. Mu kiseera kino tukyakolera ku URA tubadde tukyakolera naye mu maaso tugenda kuzimba gye tuyita one stop center ejja kubeera wano ku Leerwe nga buli ekikwata ku mmotoka kyonna kikolebwako awo. Ensonga ebisale bya baasi waliwo abadde agamba nti nakkiriza ebisale bipya. Tewali bisale bye twakkiriza era abakulu abo aba baasi tubagambye batuwandiikire batubuulire proposals ze baagala okukola mu kwongeza ebisale. Ku lunaku olwa bbalaza Commissioner wa Transport ne Road Safety ajja kusinkana abakulu abo aba baasi twogere ku nsonga eyo. Njogeddeko n'abamu ku bannannyini kampuni z'amafuta ennene ne mbasaba nti mu ngeri eno ng'Abannayuganda bwe tubadde mu kaseera akazibu abantu badde tebakola naye tebaagala okugendako eka okulya ku bulamu obw'enjawulo. Lwaki temuwa ka discount bus companies zino zireme kulinnyisa ki beeyi? Ne bagamba nakyo tujja kyogerako ne bankakasa nti ku Monday tujja kufuna akaseera tukyogereko nabo. Abanaaba bakkiriza then tujja kuwulira companies ez'amafuta tumugende ku company gundi yo yakkiriza bawa discount mutwale abantu baffe bulungi. Oluguudo lwa Congo lugenda kukolebwa. Ekyo kyasalibwawo tekidda mabega era enkya ŋŋenda terina kyajja kutaataaganya ejja kwongera bwongezi kutuwa security. Mwebale nnyo. Ministry yaleese policy gye tuyita policy ya transport ne logistics mu Uganda. Tubadde tulina policies nyingi nga buli ka department kalina policy yaako. Kati bibadde bisumbuwa n'abantu abakola plan. Oyagala policy ku Leerwe ogenda mu Leerwe, oyagala ku mazzi ogenda mu Water. Naye kati twasazeewo tubeere ne policy emu ekwata ku by'entambula ne logistics ng'eri emu. Bw'oba kyoyagala kyonna kasita ofunayo document ng'omanya ekikwata ku mazzi bwe mba njagala okuteeka investment mu mazzi ŋŋenda wa ne guidelines ziriwa. Kati policy eno kyereese. Policy eno era mu bingi byegenda okuleeta kwe kulaba nti tuteeka mu nkola ekyokugezaako kampuni zaffe ez'abantu nazo zisobole okukula zifune emirimu naddala kampuni ezikola enguudo n'okuzimba kuba kati buli mulimu kumpi ogusinga obunene gutwalibwa kampuni z'ebweru ate sente zonna zigenda wa zidda bweru. Akati twagala tuteeke mu nkola engeri kampuni zaffe tubayambe oba balina obuzibu tutule wansi tumanye obuzibu bwabwe buliriddawa tukwatagane tulabe bwe tubayamba ne kampuni zaffe zikule. Kubanga twalina kampuni wane zaali zikola zimukala zimwezaani nezigenda zibula. Twagala kampuni ezo kati ziddemu tubayambe bakulaakulane nabo basobole okuba nti bakola emirimu gino. Kuba kati Abachina bakoze enguudo naye ate mu bbanga si ddene zijja kwetaaga okuddaabiriza era tubayite bakomewo baddaabirize. Kati kampuni zaffe tugenda ziyamba mu ngeri eyo. Entambula naddala mu bibuga naddala mu kibuga Kampala mugiraba yakasandali buli lunaku kumpi tufiirwa abantu 10 ku nguudo olw'entambula eteri nnungi. Kakati mu poliisi eno eyakuteeka mu nkola nga tuteekawo engeri y'okwongera okulongoosa entambula naddala mu kibuga. Twagala okuteekawo entambula ey'olukale ekendeeza omujjuzo mu kibuga kubaka tukirabyeko tulina wano Kayoola egenda emukono enamanvu naye yajja ku luguudo okwo taxi nga buli lwegenda taxi nga 6 ziba tezirina kukola kubanga Kayoola ebeetutte katwagala giteekawo egende ne ku saidi eri Bujuuko kyetugenda okukola naye tulabe bwe kinayamba ku saidi eyo gye bujja mu maaso nga ssente zifunise eggwanga ligenze likulaakulana nawusanga naffe tulifuna aka town service aka train naye meantime waliwo enguudo zetugenda okugaziya polisi eno zeyagala mu polisi eno nga tuzigaziyaamu tufune kyetuyita bus lane basi zino ennene empanvu gaze mulaba e Dar es Salaam zibe nga zisobola okukola nga zo zirina kuba eryazo eritataganyizibwa taxi na motoka za bulijjo nga zisobole okwanguya abantu entambula ng'eyo ejja kwongera n'okukendeza ku bubenje bwe tufuna buli lunaku olw'entambula embi. Waliwo ensonga abantu abadde bazannyira mu bintu byaffe ng'ettaka yuno eteeka wali ekipande road reserve oli najja nazimba mu maaso gaakyo n'agamba kati munsasule nze nazimba wano abaleero mubawulira tubagamba ettaka mulimanyi era balimanyi ate bakkiriza baga tumanyiri n'ettaka lyaleerwe naye mutulekeewo tubalekeewo naye ettaka naffe tulyagala olikozesa kati polisi eno ejja kulambika bulungi enkola y'ebintu ebyo ebintu byaffe bikuumwa bitya era omuntu bw'aba akizannyiddemu afuna ki oba akolebwako atya mu polisi muno mwe mujja okuva amateeka agajja okufuga engeri eyo ebyo bye bitonotono ku polisi kati kanziremu ebibuuzo. The practice whenever cabinet passes some very important matters which should come to the information of public, it's now a requirement that the relevant ministers come and give the details to the press for the benefit of the public. In the last cabinet, on the 29th of November 2021, cabinet passed the National Transport and Logistic Policy, and this policy will now serve as the overall arching policy and regulatory framework for all transport and logistics in this country. Now, these are some of the key points which are important to note. Our policy is that we have a safe, accessible, sustainable, intermodal. That's the key word. Intermodal transport system to enhance Uganda's competitiveness, not only within the region, but also internationally. So the policy mission is to provide reliable, safe, efficient, and effective transport infrastructure and services that benefit all people, including people with disabilities, because these are some things which they have been missing in some of our policies, where people with disability are not accommodated. And all people, and contribute to the social and economic development. So the policy also links into the economic development of the country to see how to support the efforts towards economic development. What are the policy objectives? One is to develop a multimodal transport connectivity for Uganda's competitiveness in the national, regional, and international markets. Intermodal, multimodal is that we have air, road, water, rail. Right now, you say it's in 90% of our transport relies on road transport. So that is an imbalance, that most of the transport is on road. So we want to create a multimodal that you can move by water, connect to the rail, connect to the road, and if you want to fly out, you can fly, you can be connected to the facilities which enable you to do that. We also want to promote the national construction industry and encourage local content and private participation both in transport and the construction industry. This is a matter which many people have raised about, that our construction industry is dominated by foreigners and they are wondering where the local players are. This policy puts in place provisions to promote the local players, the local construction company, both in terms of road infrastructure, but also in housing, but also to promote those people who want to invest in private transport. For example, we have a lot of, we have a big a virgin area on the water transport on Lake Victoria and other lakes and other water bodies. So we want to promote private investment in water transport. And I think you have realized that some people have already started investing in that area, and we are being guided through this policy on how to invest. We want to promote inclusive, safe and sustainable mobility. Self-mobility. Right now, you know what's happening on our roads and our means of transport, especially within the city. How safe is our transport within the city? When you look at the border borders, which I know many of you enjoy riding on, how safe are those border borders? And so we are looking at how to promote safe and sustainable mobility. We want to promote inclusive green growth in the transport and logistics sector. While we are developing the infrastructure, for example, the roads, we should not lose sight of keeping our country green, because that's a key factor these days. We call it green growth. That's why you find now in most of our road infrastructure, which we are developing, it's a must that every contractor must plant trees or plant any greening on the road, including the northern bypass, which is being about to be finished now. The other objective is to develop a framework within which the appropriate human resource capacity, institutional and legal arrangements can be revitalized, strengthened, and even promoted, so that we can do even research and development. For example, in the construction industry, there are many technologies coming up now in terms of in the area of construction. Many people are moving away from brick and mortar and are using other means of construction. But we have not researched some of those construction models to see how safe are they in our environment and for our people. So in this policy, it provides for that we shall be doing research and development so that we can develop some of those things which are unique to our country. The key issues in the policy include intermodal transport planning and operations. Government is required to prioritize funding and planning for all transport modes: road, water, air, rail, and rail transport. Right now, I think you realize we are doing a lot of investment in the road infrastructure, and rightly so, because the road infrastructure had gone down, deteriorated over time, and we need to bring it up in support of the economic development. For example, we are going into the parish model. The parish model is intended to promote a production at the parish level, but it will be meaningless if what is produced cannot reach the market. For what is produced to reach the market, they need reliable transport, they need reliable roads, they need good infrastructure to enable them to make their products reach the market. This means you should be able to board a bus from your home to a railway station if you so desire, take a train, get to a water point and take a water vessel, and then maybe if you want to take a plane, you can fly out. For example, if you came from, say, Karamoja, you come by road, you reach Jinja, you should be able, if you love to travel by train, or from Tororo, you should be able to travel by train. When you reach Jinja, if there is a boat service to Entebbe, instead of traveling by road, jump on the boat and sail to Entebbe and take a plane to wherever destination you want to go. So that's the dream of what we want to achieve, and that's what we call the intermodal transport system. Transport is now regarded as a public service to the people of Uganda, as opposed to purely private affair. The government must invest in transport. For example, the railway system, that's why we are revitalizing the railway system, because this is a public good. Just now, if you see how much, just the small thing we are doing with the Kayola, how many people are being transported by that facility between here and Mukono, you will be surprised, and how safe and how easy it is for people to move. So government now has a responsibility of not only investing in transport infrastructure, but also services and operations. On the railway network from Tororo to Gulu, which is being rehabilitated, the end point, we have a logistic hub in Gulu, on which all the logistics which will be carried by the rail will be handled in a logistic hub. As we have seen recently, government has invested in running operations of Uganda Airlines. There are going to be more investment in operations of the road, rail, and water transport services. For example, now a lot of our exports to Tanzania are going by water. We are increasing the vessels. We had only one vessel on that route, on that corridor. We have rehabilitated the second vessel, Pamba. It will soon be sailing. It has already been given certificate of seaworthiness, so it will be sailing to Mwanza and also to Kisumu very soon. Investment and protection of the transport infrastructure assets. This is very key. You have all witnessed the theft and vandalism of transport infrastructure assets, especially road and rail transport. You know what is happening with all our road markings. You saw what has happened on the expressway. We even put a fence and it was eaten away. Even some of the barriers which would prevent an accident, you getting into the ditch if in case you run off the road, has all been vandalized. Now this policy is putting in place very strong mechanism which will be followed by regulations and laws to ensure that the infrastructure, all these infrastructure assets are protected. You have been prepared, and I think you have been following what has been happening on our road reserves, where people have been compromising our road reserves by just coming out overnight and somebody constructs in the road reserve, and then tomorrow you tell him to leave and he says, compensate me. That's going to be history now. With this new policy and the regulations to follow thereby, it's not going to happen. We have a problem now with the URC on the railway land, where people encroach on the land knowingly, because they even tell you, we know that this is railway land, but if you want us to leave, compensate. It's as fun as that, but they know it's railway land. So that's going to be not going to be allowed, because the policy is going to make a strong case on how government will acquire and protect the transport infrastructure assets. All those that have used especially road reserves for private gain now stand warned. More regulations will be issued for the implementation out of this policy directive. Regional integration of transport infrastructure and services with the neighboring countries. You all know that Uganda is a land-linked country, much as others wanted to call it landlocked. Whereby we rely so much on good and smooth transport services with our neighbors and trading partners, especially when it comes to roads, rail, and water. With this policy, the government of Uganda will harmonize its transport services with our neighbors. We have already seen this happening. For example, with our neighbor Kenya, because of the delay of the standard gauge railway between us and them linking to the standard gauge railway, Kenya has decided to rehabilitate the meter gauge railway from Naivasha to Maraba, and we are also joining the rehabilitation. So our meter gauge railway from Maraba to Kampala is under rehabilitation now by China Railway Bridges Company, which is starting works this week. Urban mobility and public transport. Government has over the years invested heavily in rural and highway roads, which has significantly improved mobility across all regions of Uganda. As I often tell you, that you can move from here to any border of this country very smoothly. You can move from here to the border of Sudan at any point of entry, be it at Misingo, be it at Oraba, Kaya, be it at Elegu, very easily. You can move to the border of Kenya. Yesterday I was in Tororo in 2 hours, 2.5 hours from Kampala, because the roads are good, they're smooth. All the way you can move in any direction. We are now connecting Moroto through Lokitanyara to Kenya. So the only border we have not yet connected and which we are going to do is the one which goes to Goli through Nebi. That one will also be done once we do the Nebi Goli Goli to Zombo Paida Road. So this will enable is a movement countrywide. The policy now recognizes that transport in urban areas require robust planning and financing. Yesterday we had an interaction with the World Bank, which is funding what we call the bus rapid transit project, which will encourage the creation of lanes and enlarging some parts of our roads to be able to provide a dedicated bus lane for buses to be able to move within the metropolitan Kampala area. So this is a matter which is being supported. Again, this policy backs that up. Strengthening the local construction industry. You have all seen that most of our road construction projects have been done by foreign companies. We have no problem with foreign companies. They can come in because they can even bring a technological transfer, but it should be for a time. We should not bring back these companies to maintain the roads they have constructed. That must be our local companies. They should be able to do that. And of course, in that way, a lot of money is taken out of the country, which would help to improve the economy if it was saturated within. Excuse me. This has left the country's construction industry weak and has in turn led to loss of jobs and reduced benefits that would have accrued from both forward and backward linkages. Through this policy, government will now make deliberate efforts in strengthening the local construction companies' capacity to take on much needed construction projects. The transport safety and security. You all know that Uganda is currently faced with high road accidents. Those who were there when we were celebrating the victims of road accidents last time, you know the figures we're talking about. 3,635 people on average every year. That's not a small number. 10 average people die every day on our roads. That's very, very unbecoming. We are among the highest accident-prone countries, and that should change. So, the policy has proposed plans to reduce this number by 3/3 in the next 10 years and make our transport services more secure in the continent. Climate change and green growth. Key to the transport infrastructure maintenance is the mitigation of the effects of climate change. The policy has now adopted innovative technologies in construction and maintenance of transport infrastructure so as to make them more resilient and less vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Our way forward, government is finalizing both the National Integrated Transport Master Plan and the National Expressway Master Plan. These will be used in implementing this approved policy. Currently, my ministry is now working on printing and the approved policy with injects from the cabinet after the discussion, and which will be distributed widely. At the same time, we shall invite many of you in seminars once the conditions allow, so that we can have more further discussion on the issues and the contents of the policy. We'll hold a number of workshops to discuss the policy, sell the policy, and also communicate it so that everybody knows where we are going and how we want to get there. This policy will also be circulated to all the local governments because according to the present law, all local governments are planning entities. So they will need to have our policy embedded in their plans as they go ahead to plan within their local areas. Thank you very much. That's what I had for you today, unless you have questions.
Honourable Minister, once you've taken...
What's the difference? Because some of the issues which I've raised in the policy have been there. What's going to be different? Right. What is different now is that we have been having, amalgamated policies. You find areas that everybody has. I have 4 major sectors, and each one had its own policy. What we have done now is to amalgamate the policy and enrich it and improve it, make it more responsive to national needs, as opposed to just having a policy on paper. Will we be able to achieve? Do we have the money? Of course, You first plan. You can't just have the money without the plan. So you start somewhere. So we have the plan, we have the policy. The policy will lead into regulations, and then the plans will be pegged to the policy. So yes, we may not implement everything at a go. It's not possible. Even in your own house, you can't implement everything at a go. But we have the plan. It's better to have something planned for, so that when you have the money, you know where to put it and why. So that's why the policy. Okay? So have no fears. We are not saying that everything will be done at a go. For example, let me look at the local content, the construction industry. Why wouldn't we now encourage our local contractors to do some of these projects? What we are looking at is giving them, not necessarily giving them preference, but also ring fencing some of the projects, for example, which are doable by them. Instead, in PPDA now law, there's a provision that a company can register. For example, it's maybe a Chinese company, but if it has been here for some time, it can register as a local company. Now, when you have a Chinese local company competing with a total local Ugandan company, it may be very difficult for the total local Ugandan company to succeed. So what are we looking at? We need to look at that and address it. Does it help our efforts by promoting the local content? So these are some of the things which the policy will be looking at to address. Bus fares, who said I increased bus fares? It's not my responsibility. Actually, we are in talks with the bus companies. My commissioner's up country is coming back this weekend. I've told him next weekend to have a meeting with the bus companies to ensure that we have, first of all, I've told him, let them write to me and give me the reasons why they want to increase the bus fares. Defend their reasons for increasing the bus fares. But next week on Monday, they're going to have a meeting with the Commissioner, Transport and Road Safety, to understand and investigate why they need to increase the bus fares. So the final bus fares, or whatever, if there will be an increase or no increase or reduction, will be communicated after that meeting. That's what I'm telling you, that whoever, if somebody does it against the arrangement, then he risks having his license withdrawn or his route chart cancelled. Yeah. We didn't allow them to do that until we have held a discussion with them. I'm also actually discussing with some fuel companies to see why, if they could not give some discounts, especially to buses, to enable our people to move for their holidays. And some companies are positive. We'll also discuss that during that time. Yeah. Airport taken over. This I think Ugandans will make a lot of assumptions. And we jump on things and draw conclusions. Who has taken over the airport? And I thought the Attorney General went to a lot of labor yesterday to explain this matter. But you still find it fun to talk about the airport being taken. Who's going to carry away the airport? Who? The airport is going nowhere. Have you read the agreement? Read the agreement. There is nowhere in the agreement where it says deposit the land title of the airport as security. It's not there. So where does this come from? You see, when you talk about the escrow account, it's like I don't know how many of you have ever benefited from a salary earner's loan. If you have a bank, you go to the bank and say, I want to get a loan. My employer will pay the loan by paying my salary through the bank. The bank may decide and say, yes, I agree, but I want a minimum deposit on your account to maintain that deposit so that the bank is sure that you are going to service their loan. That's the escrow account. What the agreement is saying, put some money on that account. In the event that there is any delay in payment, there is somewhere we can pick the money. That's playing it safe. It's not saying that put the money, whatever you put there, I take away. Otherwise, the 4-point-something billion which is there would not have been there. Secondly, this loan has a grace period of 7 years. The grace period has not expired. It has a repayment period of 20 years. We have not even started on that period. So where does the taking of the airport come from? Eh? You make so many assumptions for, and you misguide the public because it's not true. But apart from that, you also hurt our relationship with a friendly country. Do you know that China was the first country to open an embassy here? 1962. In 9 days after independence, they had an embassy here. We have a very good relationship with China. I'll peg that to what you're talking about, the loans which they are giving us. Tell me the cheap loans elsewhere which we can get. And if they were there, why weren't those friends, quote unquote, giving us those loans before? So let's look at the big picture and don't just get excited about misinformation. It's not good for our country, but also for our friendship with the foreign country. We have so many students in China, don't we? It's the biggest trading China country where we are going. You wait when we start the Guangzhou flight. You'll find it goes full, it comes back full. So let's be guarded, let's be careful on what, we don't just speak irresponsibly, let's be guarded on how we address these matters. Chinese loans, with projects, so many projects have been done by the Chinese companies. Look at the oil roads. I don't know how many of you have been in the oil belt in the Grabatine area, in Hoima. At least you go there and see what's on the ground. And then you can talk from a point of information. So yes, there are a number of projects with the, now asking me about the loan, sustainable, good question, but that's for the Minister of Finance. I just supervise the project to see that the project is done. Repayment and payment terms, those are negotiated by Minister of Finance. And so I cannot respond to that question of how much we are paying. About the ADF in Congo, good question. That's a matter for Minister of Defense. Minister of Defense will be addressing Parliament, I think soon, to give the reasons why why UPDF had to start this operation against the ADF. But if you have ever had either a friend, a relative affected by what has been happening from the bomb blasts and the rest and other things, then you would appreciate and understand why we need to deal with that problem. The construction of roads has not been affected. We shall still go ahead to do the roads because that was a strategic decision and it's a strategic direction in terms of promoting trade between us and the DRC. Transfer of motor vehicles, what's going to happen to the middlemen? I don't know. Because everywhere I'm putting a system, the middlemen may have no role. You have seen what has happened with the driving permit. You go there in 40 minutes and you get your driving permit. So this is what is going to happen even with the registering of the motor vehicles. You must register your motor vehicles yourself. This business of saying I bought a vehicle from Katumba and to remain in Katumba's name for 3 years, no more. Because if that vehicle is found committing a crime or being used in committing a crime somewhere, they will go for Katumba, in whose names the vehicle is, while it had already moved to Wamala. So you register the vehicle yourself. You buy a vehicle, you must process the transfer. We are going to make the systems as easy and as smooth as possible. That in the future, you could be sitting in your office and just on your phone, you can find the details about your vehicle. Even now, just now, if you go to that place and you give your vehicle number, they just tap it in and all the details of your vehicle, that vehicle number will drop down. So middlemen, I think they may have to find alternatives because for me, my systems which I'm going to put in place may have no room for middlemen.